Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly video series that I produce where I ask you as members of the gun community about something that deals with firearms, the gun culture, politics, history, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And this week's question kind of deals with older news. However, I think it's important that we now look at it with the perspective of a little bit of time passing, because often in the moment when something happens, when news breaks, emotions are very high. That's what the anti-gunners do. When something bad happens and they want to pass gun control, for them the time to do it is in the moment when emotions are high. And I remember when this story broke and a lot of people in the firearms community had emotional reactions and they were very upset. But now we've had some time to think about it. And so that's why I wanted to ask you about Matt Hoover and CRS Firearms. And is he really guilty? If you guys don't know this story, he was a YouTuber who collaborated with somebody that was creating something called the auto key card. And essentially, it was a little piece of metal with an etching of what is known as a drop-in auto sear for an AR-15. It was not punched out. It was not perforated. You couldn't really turn it into a drop-in auto sear without a lot of work. So essentially it really was just a piece of metal with an etching on it. However, he pushed some buttons and he told people you can scratch your full auto itch by buying these, and in a very secretive way by sending cash or money orders to some P.O. box, and he would mail it to anywhere you wanted to prevent the government from knowing you had one. But a lot of people said it was his First Amendment right to do so because it's just a piece of art, which I think art is kind of a stretch. But he got arrested by the ATF and later was convicted on conspiracy to sell machine guns. And this made a lot of people really upset and said, see, this is the DOJ and the ATF with a major overreach. But as I said, now some time has passed, and I'm curious what you all thought about this whole predicament. Is Matt guilty? Is he just stupid? Or is he innocent, or maybe something else? Well, let's dive right into this week's question and then get your results. A few months ago, the news broke that Matt Hoover of CRS Firearms was found guilty of illegally selling machine guns in the form of the auto key card. Many people agreed that the item is simply a piece of metal with an etching of a drop-in auto sear on it and not a firearm itself. However, he was found guilty by a jury of his peers. While many said this was a gross overreach by the DOJ and ATF, others said he brought this on himself, as he even stated in his video promoting the product that it was a way to scratch your full auto itch, thus provoking the ATF. In your opinion, do you think this was a travesty of justice, or did Matt of CRS Firearms provide the rope he was metaphorically hanged with? And I want you guys to notice that I did add something in that question that a lot of people overlook. A lot of people say it was the DOJ and the ATF that had a major overreach. Well, we have something in our system that can prevent that. While they can't indict him, a jury of his peers can look at it and go, well, he's completely innocent. Well, a jury of his peers found him guilty. It wasn't the ATF that found him guilty. It wasn't the DOJ that found him guilty. It wasn't even the federal judge that found him guilty. It was a jury of his peers, and he had his day in court, and his attorney had the ability and the time to argue their case to these peers of his, and they still found him guilty. So while I know initially, regardless of how you feel about this, you can be mad at the DOJ and the ATF. However, a jury of his peers unanimously found him guilty. I definitely think there's something to be said for that. And this is why I think the culture war is so important, and why we as Second Amendment advocates have to work so hard to educate the non-gun owners of this country, because this is where I think a lot of Second Amendment battles can be fought. There is something called jury nullification as well. You can agree that somebody is guilty of a crime, but still vote that they are innocent because you disagree with the law on its face. Or you can convince a jury that this person is innocent of this crime, and this did not rise to the level of selling machine guns. But either way, let's dive right into your results and see what you guys had to say about this situation. With 121 votes as I'm filming this video, we have Matt is completely innocent as he did nothing wrong, 18%. He is innocent, but his words and actions did not help his case, 60%. Matt is partially guilty, but the ATF and DOJ were overreaching, 13%. Matt is guilty and got what he deserved in a court of law, 5%. And something else, explain in the comments, 3%. You know, in the weeks after this story broke, and I even made a video on my main channel about it, I think the results of this poll, if I would have asked about it then, would be quite different than it is now. As I said, I think now that we've taken the emotions out of it and can look at this situation for what it really is, I think logic and reason start to factor in. And I'm really glad to see that a majority of people did agree that his words and actions had something to do with the outcome and all of the pain and suffering he and his family are now having to deal with. Now, I do feel sorry for him, and I don't want you guys to think I'm some type of cold-hearted person, but I also believe that every action has consequences. And I'm going to talk about that when we go through each one of these and tell you guys what I think. First, we have Matt is completely innocent as he did nothing wrong. Now, I know when this story broke, as I said, a lot of people felt this was the outcome. Now, he did absolutely nothing wrong. However, I am reminded from a quote from the original Jurassic Park. And the quote goes, "You were so concerned and busy asking yourself if you could, you didn't stop and think if you should." There's a lot of things in our society that are legal. However, there might be consequences to still doing those things. An example I always use is it is your First Amendment right to stand on the sidewalk outside of an elementary school and scream profanities. That is completely within your right. You are on public land. You are saying something that is protected by the First Amendment. However, do you think that's really something wise to do? You're going to draw unwanted attention to yourself, even though you have the right to do it, and most likely you're going to encounter a law enforcement officer that's going to try to find something to take you out of that situation and arrest you. He's not going to say, "Hey, you're not allowed to say that." He's going to say, "Well, you're a public nuisance and we need to take you downtown," maybe even for a mental evaluation, because that is not normal behavior. The parents, who often would probably be the peers on this jury I'm talking about, would go, "I don't want my kids exposed to this language, even though he has a right to say it. So I'm going to do anything in my power to prevent this from happening." And you might also get the community as a whole going, "This is not appropriate. Yes, it's your constitutional right, but why are you doing this? It serves no purpose." And so, yes, you constitutionally have the right to do it, but there are consequences to your actions, and people are going to try to use the legal system as it is to get you arrested and possibly charged and convicted with something, even though it is legal. The action unto itself is legal. And I think that Matt Hoover had a moment to back away from this. When the DOJ and the ATF did send him a cease and desist letter, he could have gone to an attorney and went like, "What do I do? Where are my constitutional rights and how far can they go? What can I do?" And that lawyer might have advised him one way or another. He might have continued down the same path. Or maybe legal advice would have said, "Hey, you can still sell this, don't advertise it as such, and go about it a different way." And he could have avoided all of this because it was his right, because it's a piece of art. And I don't really think it's a piece of art. We all know what it was and what he was trying to do, but it all had to do in how he was trying to sell it. And I think a lot of this could have been avoided. Now, personally, I do not think he is 100% innocent in this. Then we have, he is innocent, but his words and actions did not help his case. And this obviously got the majority of votes in this poll. I definitely think that most reasonable and rational people would agree that this is probably the case. Going back to what I said, he was not convicted by the ATF. He was not convicted by the DOJ. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. And all the prosecutor had to do was play the videos of Matt Hoover simply saying, you can scratch your full auto itch. You can turn this into a lightning link or a drop-in auto sear and convert your AR-15 into a machine gun. So they had his words, his intent. And so he also said a lot of things negative about the ATF and the DOJ. He provoked them. And while maybe he shouldn't have gotten arrested or indicted on this, he brought a lot of attention against him. Now, let me ask you, even though it's your right, is it advisable or smart to go after in public an agency that even by your own admission is rogue, that is going to overstep the bounds of normal law and rulemaking to go after you? Do you really want to provoke them? I think it's really intelligent to make wise choices and to go, how is the best way for me to go about this without bringing a whole bunch of unwanted attention on me? And that's exactly what he did. He brought a lot of unwanted attention on him. And they were going to find a way to arrest him and convict him, or at least take him to trial in some way because of his words and actions. And personally, I even think the DOJ and the ATF were surprised that he was convicted. I think they were just trying to teach him a lesson by making him go to court. And then all of a sudden they won, and they're like, wow, we didn't see that coming. But I can see why so many people would have thought this was going to be the outcome because of his own words and actions. Then we have Matt is partially guilty, but the ATF and DOJ were overreaching. Now, this is actually the one that I thought was going to get the most votes, because I definitely think that the ATF and the DOJ did overreach. They don't have this authority. But remember, who's in the White House right now? Who's running the DOJ and the ATF? They're looking for anybody to make an example of. And we hear stories all the time. I see it on other YouTube channels where they bring up stories about people getting arrested for not even having complete firearms, but getting arrested for selling illegal machine guns and destructive devices without a license, even though the things they have are either inert and completely chopped up. So we already know this is going on, and I kind of thought a lot of people were going to say this was the case. Then we have Matt is guilty and got what he deserved in a court of law. And that only got 5%. And this is where I think I'm going to make some people upset, because believe it or not, this is the one I actually would have voted for. Now, before you get mad and click away from the video, give me a chance to explain my position. Now, I don't have to agree with the law. I don't have to like the law. However, I know what the law is. And he was not convicted of selling machine guns. He was convicted of conspiracy to sell machine guns. And some of you are already asking, wait, he wasn't selling a machine gun. So how can you say that, Jason? Give me an example anywhere else in law where this is fact. Well, I can give you two. Intent is important in the prosecutorial process. So, for example, if you take powdered sugar and you put it into little baggies and you go out to the street corner and you tell people, hey man, I'm selling some cocaine. I mean, I don't know what you actually say when you're selling cocaine, because I've never done it, never bought cocaine. But I'm imagining you're on the street corner with little baggies of white powder and you're trying to sell this stuff and you're telling people it's cocaine. Well, that's actually illegal, because you are intending to sell a controlled substance. Even though you don't have a controlled substance, you are passing it off as though it is a controlled substance, and you have the intent to sell a controlled substance. The same thing can be said for the people that are buying those baggies. They can get arrested for the intent to purchase a controlled substance. This happens all the time in undercover stings. They don't actually have real drugs, but because people intended to buy cocaine or buy marijuana or buy whatever it is, they can get arrested. This also happens with the ATF. If they find a bad guy that's looking to buy an illegal machine gun, well, they're not going to sell him a real machine gun. They're going to sell him one that is inert and doesn't work, but he had the intent to buy a real machine gun. Therefore, they can arrest him. The same thing can go with prostitution. Now, I can tell you, as a libertarian, I don't think there should be any laws against prostitution. It's consenting adults doing consenting things for a financial transaction. I don't want to see it on my street corner. I'd like to see it maybe regulated and taxed, but I don't think people should go to jail for the rest of their lives or have their lives ruined because of prostitution, as long as it's consenting adults. Well, that's my personal opinion as a libertarian. However, as the law is currently written, you can get arrested for soliciting sex from a police officer that's undercover. That police officer has no intention of doing anything with you, but you had the intent of doing that. Therefore, you can get arrested. And with Matt Hoover sold these items saying you can scratch your full auto itch, you can turn these into a lightning link, whether or not that is reasonable, because people said the ATF spent hours trying to turn one of these into a lightning link and got it to kind of work one time. It doesn't really work. It's not really a drop-in auto link. I understand that. But what was Matt's intent, and how was the law currently written? The intent plays a huge role, and that is why he was convicted of conspiracy to sell machine guns. I personally do not like the law. I do not agree with the law. However, the way that our law is written, the way that it is enforced, and the way it has been interpreted by the Supreme Court, he is guilty of this crime. As I said, I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me about it, but this is a stance that actually I evolved into. Originally, I thought the ATF just had a big overreach. I was like a lot of you guys. I was very upset about it. And then as the facts of the case came out and other people brought to my attention in my previous videos, hey, this is the laws when it pertains to drugs and prostitution. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a problem with those, and the courts don't have a problem with that when it comes to intent. Well, he was guilty. I think the ATF honestly gave him a way out because they sent him a cease and desist letter. If he would have stopped there, I don't think they would have gone after him anymore. But he chose to poke the bear, and the consequences of his actions came down on him. And I do feel sorry for his family, but part of me feels like, well, he kind of got what he deserved. When he got that cease and desist letter, he could have made a better decision. And then we have something else explained in the comments. So I personally think that over time, people's opinions of this have slowly changed, maybe not as drastic as mine, but I'm glad to see that a lot of people were taking the emotional element out of it, because we don't want to be like the anti-gunners and always just go to emotion and reaction when it comes to these cases and these stories. So with all that said, in my personal opinions, let's see what you guys had to say with this week's top-rated comments. With the top-rated comment of the week, we have Cretin Edward, who says, I've been a critic of CRS for many years before his situation took place. He's guilty of nothing besides being a bombastic jackwagon. He earned my sub because he came out with constantly good video ideas that I would almost certainly disagree with him on. God bless Matt and his family. And I think that's perfectly fine. You care about his family, you care about him as a human being, and you wish he would have made other decisions. You know, I don't hate him. I don't dislike him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I just think he made some stupid decisions, and those stupid decisions led to some very bad consequences. Then we have Walter Miner 4990, who said, I followed his channel. Was some good fun stuff in many videos, but you could only kick a dog so many times before that dog is gonna bite. He kicked, he hot bit. I think he meant he got bit. What's the saying in that famous video? You F around and you find out. Well, he F'd around at about a level 10 and he found out at about a level 10. And that's just the way the world works. You don't have to like it, but you have to admit there are consequences to every action, even if that action is technically legal. Then we have Mark Hornsby, who said, I followed CRS Firearms on YouTube. From what I saw, he was guilty. He wasn't very smart on how he handled the situation. It was like he was daring them to do something. I don't think that he would have ever been charged with it if he would have stopped promoting the auto key cards when he got on the ATF's radar. I agree 100%. I think that sums up everything I had to say earlier. You have to play it smart. Just because the world is a certain way doesn't mean you need to try to buck the system. You got to work within the system sometime and be smart about it, even if you don't like the system. Then we have Saber-Tooth Defense Systems, who says, the way I view it, the card is simply a piece of metal, and the manufacturer themselves stated it was a drawing. From what I understand by the explanation of the manufacturer, the dimensions of the card are made so that it couldn't even be used if you did cut it out. The issue, though, is intent. When you go around all over YouTube telling people to buy some, and literally calling them lightning links, even if by mistake in reference, and telling people they could buy them anonymously, paying via money order and having them shipped to a separate address, that paints the picture to a jury that your intent was other than that of the manufacturer's design and intent. Even if you didn't mean it that way, that's how it looks, and your statements can screw you big time later on. And to me, that's what happens. I think the ATF definitely overreaches, and I think they should be abolished. But man, did this guy not only poke the bear, he did it with a huge pointy spear. I would love to be able to watch the trial or read the transcripts to be able to see the prosecution's testimonies, witnesses, and everything they brought to the table. I feel bad for the guy, but he's an adult. He made choices that, whether legal or illegal, were spouted all over a public social media platform, i.e. YouTube, as proof. In the end, his family is the one that has to suffer now. In the end, we have to remember that there's a reason the ATF went after this guy. Sad story, but in all honesty, I really don't know which side to believe. Yeah, and that is a fantastic comment, and I completely agree. His family is really the one suffering. He could have made better decisions. I know I sound like a broken record, but let's be honest here. Has the ATF gone after anybody that bought the auto key card? No, because they don't really consider it a machine gun. They were going after somebody selling them with the intent to sell machine guns, and he even boasted about it on YouTube. It's not like the FRT triggers where they're trying to track them down. They're not going after the people that bought these auto key cards. They're not worried about it. They're not added to the Operation Reticent Recall. They don't care because they know they're just a drawing. However, it was the intent, and I still say if he wouldn't have said you could scratch your full auto itch with them, he wouldn't be in the situation that he's in. And then finally, we have Spirit Moon Intuitive, who says, don't know of him, never watched his videos, but heard what happened. I'm not familiar with what happened. And you know, this is actually the way that I was until the story really broke, because I didn't follow his channel. And then when I went back and saw the videos he made, I really didn't care for his presentation style. He came across as very bombastic and didn't come across as being very intelligent. I hope that you guys notice that when I create content here on YouTube and Rumble, that I try to approach it from an intellectual standpoint. I don't try to use hyperbole. I'm not trying to arouse the emotions of a bunch of people. I'm just trying to tell you facts and opinions and have an intellectual dialogue with those people that are interested in talking with me. That's what I want to have here, is conversations. And sometimes I'm going to be wrong, sometimes I'm going to be right. Same with you. Sometimes our opinions will change, and that's what this is all about, having a conversation and a discussion and coming to conclusions based off of facts and reason, not emotions. And that's what this is all about. But when I saw his channel, I was like, that is not the type of content that I'm really interested in watching. It's not the style that I like. It's too bombastic. I'll just stay away. And then I found out what happened. But I guess from watching those old videos, I think a lot of people could have said, I saw this coming a mile away, and he should have been smarter about it. And honestly, I think that's the big travesty of it all. He doesn't come across to me as a very smart individual, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He just should have done this a different way and listened to the advice of other people. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. It's on an old topic, but I know some people are very passionate about it. So if you would like to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link in the description below, as well as a pinned comment. Go over there, see what the next poll is about. Make sure that you vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. I'm so glad to be making these and putting them on the Texas Gun Vault too, because I hope to grow this channel. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Am I completely wrong and off base on this? Do you guys hate me now because I told you how I honestly feel now that I've had some time to think about it? So, as always, thanks for watching.